This is part 2 of my Let's Play with the USA. Last video was the starting sequence where I took all of my forces and moved them to Washington, D.C. I then made proper chain of command, put leaders where they needed to be to reduce the amount of fuel and supplies, and I connected all the naval units and all the Air Force units to one of the Army Corps to further reduce the supply they use. So here we go, starting out again. Speed 5. As things happen, Nationalist China acquired Guangxi. Click. And I still do all of the trades manually at this stage of the game. Generally, I always do everything manually, but sometimes I will flip them over. It depends on your play style. If it bothers you to have to read all of these, then by all means turn it to manual. Just be aware that if you do that, it does take diplomatic influence points, so you will have to put some research points into diplomacy to ensure that your AI will always have enough to make these deals and trades. Now bear in mind that if a country is coming to you to make a deal or a trade, it does not use any diplomacy points. But if the AI is going out, in my case, it would be trying really hard to get a lot of supplies, and it would need the diplomacy points. As you can see here, my pop-up is telling me in 19 days we will run out of supplies. Usually Japan is really good early. There you go, right there. They're giving me 20 supplies. Japan is a really good trading partner early in the game. Excuse me, for supplies. And I generally always try to give Germany manual trades of rare resources, because there comes a point in time where they really need them. And it's a little boring if Germany is not powerful and they don't do well. A lot of times they'll get bogged down in Norway and have the majority of their troops in Norway, and it can get a little boring, but I always play with the thought of what the Allies actually did in World War II, where that's a Europe first policy. So Japan, the Pacific is going to be, in this particular game, will be a secondary theater. And I do that for various reasons. I have found that generally if I play that way, depending on exactly what I do during a game, now I've played, I hesitate to say thousands of games, but I have played an awful lot of games. Excuse me. Since I don't micromanage, I get through games generally faster than, people who sit here and agonize over every, plus or minus stat on the map. It's not my style. But I have played games where Japan has taken over the entire Pacific and all of the Middle East and parts of Africa, and has pushed Russia roughly to where you see the U in the word union before I get involved. So it can be, if left to their own devices in the Pacific, which historically the U.S. couldn't start punching back immediately, and Japan was able to expand and gather all these resources, it's much better gaming experience for me, at least. So that's generally what I do. Now, also, like I said, I do want Germany to be strong. I've had many games where Germany actually annexes all of Russia. Now that's a very interesting game, I can tell you that. So we've got a bribed minister. A member of our government has been accused of cooperating with the opposition party. According to the source, the minister in question has accepted bribes more than once to make sure certain proposals are rejected. Naturally, the minister himself denies any involvement. Now, I'm sometimes conflicted about this, because a lot of people will simply look at the consequences of what happens. But I actually will click on what I think I would do in the actual situation without knowing the consequences, because beforehand you're not going to know what's going to happen. You're either going to support the person or move the person to a different position. And in this case, it says here he's accused of cooperating with the opposition party. According to the source, that means there is a source and there is some proof. So in this particular situation, I would not want anyone in my administration who was not supporting me and my policies. So obviously, if this individual is supporting the opposition, he's not on board with my policies. So I'm going to give him a new position. Let what happens happens. I don't care about the consequences. Excuse me. Okay. Now you'll see I have these more efficient laws I can enact, which is going to be the specialist training, which I will do as the USA. I'll go ahead and do that now just so that pop-up disappears. And that just basically means that recruit time from the time I put a unit in the queue to the time it comes out is now 20% longer. However, they do have 25% more experience. So you can lower these if you're a country, I don't know, say the Soviet Union or China, and you just want to mass produce troops, you can use that and move it down to minimal time, minimal recruit time, and you can get a lot more units on the map a lot faster. They'll just have less experience. In some cases, that's not that big of a deal because you'll be engaged in combat so early in the game and for so long that they will gain that experience back. But for me, in the purposes of playing USA, I prefer them to be trained as much as possible. Again, we're looking mighty bad here. Now I will manually go out here and try to find anyone who has excess. Let's see if National Spain will sell any to me. Oh, didn't mean to click there. Nope. Soviet Union. I generally do not trade with the Soviet Union. They're just, like I said, I want Germany to do well because I don't want the Soviets steamrolling Germany and making it a very boring game in Europe. But I'll take these 20 supplies if they're willing to trade them to me. You can see here I'm short 26.64 supplies every day. Now another thing that can be done, I have not done it yet, but if you click down here on the right, you can see your supply map mode. Now the red supply routes are where you are sending supplies and fuel out, and the green, and I'm going to call this color green, is where you are receiving resources back in. So we're receiving resources from the Philippines, from Hawaii, in the Pacific. That's what I'm interested in right now. Now what I have done in the past is you switch back to regular map mode, you notice all these little far-flung islands do not have any garrisons on them. So you can manually turn off, which I'm actually going to do right now. So we've got American Samoa, Phoenix, Christmas, Jarvis, and Palmyra. Go into production, click on create convoy, deselect auto create supply convoys, and then close, and you go down here and you'll find those convoys. Alright, so Palmyra we can cancel, Jarvis Island we can cancel, Christmas Island we can cancel, Phoenix Island we can cancel, and American Samoa we can cancel. Now I'll start the game again. Soviet Union accepted, good. I'm going to look at the supply map mode again. Notice that there's no longer supplies going to those islands. No supply convoys. Now we do have units on Johnson and all the rest of the, with the exception, nope, we still have units on O2. Now I will also turn the one off to Anchorage. Which is Seattle to Anchorage. Cancel convoy. Okay. Now back to speed 5. Let it run. Now again, my play style, generally I can get the supplies I need, but as you can see right now, I'm in a great big deficit. So again, I'm going to keep manually trying. Now if I cannot get, there are some games where I cannot get what I need, and I will turn the supply production on in the production sliders, because you just have to do that if things don't work out. But on most games I can get by without producing any supplies. Now some people again would call this gamey, and I guess I see some merit in that. However, we're a huge, in this game, the USA is a huge trading nation. And I see no reason why other countries would not bend over backwards to want to trade with the USA and make some money. So that's my rationale. See if the Soviets will trade once more. Nope. Greece. Also, every trade you do with a nation influences their opinion, their relationship towards you. And it doesn't matter the quantity. Some people will suggest, if you're trying to court a nation or get on good terms with a nation, to do a series of real small trades, like 1 to 5 units at a time, if you know they'll sell you a lot of units, because every one changes your relation with them by 15. So for example, if I make a trade with Austria, which obviously I can't do because we don't both have a port, Austria is landlocked, but if I made a trade with Austria and we were at 50 in our relations, if they accepted a trade, would be at 65. 15 points. And it looks like the Netherlands will trade with me, so we'll take those 4 if they accept. Every little bit helps. Accept. So that's 10 more supplies. Japan is possibly offering me supplies. They're real good about that. Oh, they want crude oil. Okay. Well, see, I'm getting in a predicament right now where if I do not get my supplies back up very fast, my troops go out of supply and I start losing manpower. They'll slowly drain away. And of course that's a bad thing, because if you've played this game before, you'll know the USA does have a small manpower pool, particularly up until the a war with Japan, where an event fires that gives you 500. But if you slowly drain them away during the pre-war years, it's really going to hurt you in the end. Alright, here's Canada coming through. And Japan coming through. That's another 40 supplies right there. Let's see. See if it levels off. Now, changes in the supply model. There's been a lot of pluses and minuses. A lot of people really hate the supply model of the game. I'm not a fan of it. I see no reason why I can't manually set a convoy to anywhere I want to. You can set convoys, but there's a great many limitations on how you can set convoys. But it doesn't really hamper me, because even though I'm not a fan of the supply system, I don't let it hamper me. I've never had a big issue. Supply has never been the reason I have lost any particular battle. Well, I guess I should take that back. I have lost individual battles, of course, but I've never lost an entire front because of supply. Because there's ways to help you alleviate that, and you don't have many of the options that I use playing a smaller country, but the USA has such a vast industrial base that upgrading ports and infrastructure can be done in a timely manner. Now, here is my light cruisers coming up to spec. Let's look at what we got here. 1938. So at this point, I will unqueue them because I do not research them ahead. Then I'll go back to my bomber wing and complete the bombers. Let's look at what we've got for fighters. All right, it's 36, so we don't want to do anything with them yet. Look on our industry. Nothing I want to do there now. I will. My goal is to get mechanized infantry, which means I'm going to need to actually I want to do this 38, the 1918 first. The further back it is, the faster it will research. So that leaves me at 34 even. We'll let that stay there for now. And then every time something comes up out of Navy, I'll come here and do the research to get the motorized infantry and then the mechanized infantry. Another big thing that I generally try for early on in the game is that superior firepower. As the USA, that makes a great big difference because being able to field 5 brigades per division is really nice. So that will also be one of my next. Here we go, rogue politician. Long been known that a certain minister has held views that differ from the rest of the government. Well, here we go. I'm going to ignore him because if he's differing from the rest of the government, again, he is not supporting my policy. So I will ignore him and let what consequences they may come, let them come. All right, so we've got heavy cruisers and destroyers. So that should give me 8 free research slots. Heavy cruisers and destroyers. Now I'm going to go back and definitely research tactical command structure because I do want this superior firepower. Then take the rest of them and do my cavalry techs. I'm only going to raise the cavalry tech enough to get motorized infantry. Now I'm going to go ahead and start on infantry because I will require that eventually to get the mechanized infantry. Now I've got 1 free. And I also prefer to go back to the land techs. Now, it's not very much, but your land front and your guerrilla warfare reduces the amount of supplies your headquarters take. Here you can see headquarters supply consumption, negative 0.01 and negative 0.01. So I will also research these, as well as operational level organization, because that decreases the... Paradox has a funny way of wording things when it comes to math especially, and it took me a while to get used to it. This says delay between attacks reduced with 24 hours. And it's in green, which means that's a positive thing. So if right now my army can make an attack and then make an attack, as an example, 48 hours later, if I research this, now instead of 48 hours, it's going to be 24 hours. So this is always a good thing to research because you want your army to be able to attack as quickly as possible after each successful or unsuccessful attack. In other words, it decreases their amount of organization time. After each battle, they can get back into the battle faster. Now you can see here that because of that minister decision, I have 5 dissent. Very simple, just come down here, get rid of that 5 dissent. And I only move it, I imagine everybody does, but I only move it just enough to get rid of the dissent. That way there's still any excess that I do not need is still working on production. Alright, there we go. And 1 day should clear that out. Alright, so 0.5 of course. Alright, radio detection. Allow radar installations to work as listening posts. That's a good thing. Now, it's not that big of a deal as the USA radar, that is, because generally I'm only going to build it as soon as I can build radar. I will build it at in this particular game I'm only going to build it in Hawaii. Now if you're the UK, you definitely want to build some radar stations along your southern coast, because when they're upgraded all the way to level 10, it lets you see really deep into these areas, Fortress Europe if you will. Also, by upgrading that radio detection technology, they become listening posts. So in addition to your radars helping air battles, radars will help your aircraft in the province the radar is in and each adjacent province. Okay, so if you have a level 10 radar that reaches all the way to here, you have an air battle here, your radar will not affect your aircraft at all. Only in the province the radar is in and adjacent provinces. But with the listening posts, you will intercept radio messages from the enemy, and that increases your intelligence. So a radar may see a unit set in here, but if they're idle, it may not see them. However, if they're broadcasting messages behind the scenes in the game, your listening post may pick it up, and then even though your radar cannot see the unit, you will be able to see the unit, some limited intelligence on it. So that's also a good thing to do, particularly as the United Kingdom, because it's, as you can imagine, it's very imperative that you control the channel and basically keep Germany's navy away from your shores. Okay, now I have one additional technology, and I'm going to go into land and get that guerrilla warfare, because again, anything I can do to reduce the level of supplies needed. You can see I'm making supplies, or I'm in the plus again, the positive. Yes, I will sell rare materials and energy. Alright, basic medium fuel tanks. That will complete that portion of the bomber tech. Again, we go into the land tab, get the operational level organization. Now, I know there's probably min-maxers. If you happen to look at this, you're probably frothing at the mouth right now, because this is not the most or the best way to do this, but I don't really care. I just play the game for fun. I'm not particularly worried about if I do this or that. It will say 0.0001 of this or that. Alright, carriers. Now I will keep doing this for all ships until the level 1940. I will not build a single ship until I get my naval units to at least level 1940. Alright, so engines, anti-aircraft, and hangar. Excuse me. And we go back into the land tab and start working on the land. I generally try to pick the 1918 first and bring them up to speed. And then I'll go back and get the 36s and work my way up. If I'm working in a particular technology department / tab, it's all considered land. So if I see anything in here that's 1918 that I am going to be using, I will try my best to take it first, all things being equal. Okay? Now if this said, I don't know, 34 and this said 34, I would still choose them first over the 1918s, because right now my goal is to save supply. And I will eventually get to all these, but I would not choose a 36 over an 18, because we want to get everything up as fast as we can. On par, if you will. There's the engine. Now, 38, again, I won't start building anything until I hit 1940 for Navy. Now let's take a look at our, oh, I can see something's coming out of production right now, which is probably the rocket test site. And I always put the rocket test site in Santa Fe. You can put it where you want to. I myself am in Alamogordo, New Mexico, and we have a high-speed test sled here. But so I always put this in New Mexico. I will also put my, if I build nuclear reactors, I will put them here also. Those Los Alamos, you know. All right. Proceeding on. Still in a positive for supplies. And generally we'll sell everything to everybody. But I always try to keep track of Germany. If they're short on anything, I will do my best to sell them that product, because I want them to be strong. I want it to be an entertaining game. I don't want it to be a steamroll. So they need 10 metal. Let's see if they will take it. Nope. That's money issue. They don't really have any money. So let's see if I can buy some supplies from them, put a little money in their wallet. Nope, they will not accept it. Is there anything else they have that they may sell? Not really. Okay. Let's see if they'll sell any fuel. Just because I want them to be able to purchase what they need. And as a secondary to that, I will check Italy, even though Italy is not in the Axis yet. Again, Germany, Italy, and Japan. If I can sell them something, I will. Because I want them to be nice and strong. I don't want it to be a pushover. In fact, while I'm here, I'm going to see if I can buy. That reminds me, was I clicking on sell earlier when I was on Germany? Well, yes, I was, because I wanted them to sell me something, put money in their wallet. All right. Want to be sure I don't. I have to admit, I know that if anyone's watching this, they don't really care, but my daughter just had a baby. I'm a grandfather as of a few hours ago, and I keep getting messages on my phone, and that's a little distracting. So I apologize. Although I'm not a professional at this. This is just me, an old guy playing games and posting them up on YouTube. Democratic Party. Now, there are many times I would prefer the Republican Party to win the election, but, you know, you work with what you get. I'm going to leave this as acceptable to Axis just because I don't want the ruling party support, because I would like the Republicans to come in the party. Now, chemical engineering and resources. The USA has so many resources right now at the beginning that they don't need any. Now, with me going to be pumping up the IC, that may change. But for now, we'll just leave it on Roper because he is a Republican. Try to get as many Republicans in the cabinet as possible. Murphy. Here we don't really have. So I'm going to put it on Friedman because there's no Republican available. Now Craig, MacArthur, and in this case, capital ship practical delay actually works good for me because I will be building battleships and heavy cruisers. And he is a market liberal, which worked fine. All right. How far away are we? It's now November in the first year. It looks like March is when the factories will start coming out. Now I've seen some other people who build production and it pops up in their queue to be distributed. I prefer building it right there in the province so that I don't have to mess with distributing it later. It just automatically pops up in the province that I build it in. Good supply coming in. Great war demonstration. That's grand. Yes, France, I will sell you crude oil. And Belgium, I will sell you energy. Now shortly, and it looks like Republican Spain is going to win the Spanish Civil War, which 9 times out of 10 nationalist Spain will win. And that is a normal chain of command, but it looks like in this game Republican Spain may win, and that's a deviation. It's always, in my experience, it always turns out to be a more exciting game when Republican Spain wins because that means things have gone slightly off the rails. Okay, education, supply. I'm going to leave them in there as long as they're not. That was the, okay, 35. Oh, I did get the education. I just sat there and read it and then forgot about it. Now, since we're into 37, I can now start researching the 38 techs without a penalty. So I'm going to go back to the aircraft carrier. And believe it or not, I will load all of the naval units back at the top of the queue. Because again, my goal is to get them all to 40 before I start producing anything. And it means I will move everything else down the queue, which is just the way I do it. Come on, double click. I'm getting old and my reflexes are not as fast as used to be, so double clicking even sometimes is hard for me. Alright, now I'll just go down here and move them all to the top. Everything that is a naval tech. And I'm going to move that education up also. Okay. Let's see if they have anything. See if they'll sell me some supplies. No, they need some energy. Can they afford it? No, they cannot afford it. And they won't sell me supplies, so I can't get them any money in their pockets. But they're doing well. It looks like for sure that excuse me, that Republican Spain is going to win the Civil War. And again, that's a excuse me again. That's an anomaly, I think. Typically, Nationalist Spain will win. This is going to be grand, I think. I think this will be a good game. Now, we'll see what Japan does when it invades China. Now we'll look at cavalry. And you can see that cavalry support weapons shows a green. That means I can research motorized infantry. So 38 is the level. So I can just remove that. And since I've got the queue loaded, just let it run. Submarine. Now here's the reason some games I don't even bother with submarine tech, but in this particular instance, Japan is a second theater policy. So even though I'm not going to be actively engaged in Japan with the bulk of my Navy here in the Pacific, I will send submarines out to harass them at some point. That's why I'm leveling up the submarine tech. Now everything in a submarine will upgrade except for the engine and the hull. So let's say I have 1940 tech engine and hull and I build 5 submarine flotillas, but I keep the torpedo and anti-aircraft and these bottom techs researching. They will upgrade on that submarine. What will not change is their range, their engine, and their hull. But their techs, the anti-aircraft, the sonar detection, and the air warning equipment tech will upgrade. It's just the base hull itself. And that's the same with surface vessels. You cannot upgrade the armor or the engine or the main armaments, but you can upgrade the sonar and the anti-aircraft and the radar. And that's obviously a separate tech down here for large warships and small warships. All right, so we'll just let it run. Oh, I forgot to take torpedoes out. Okay. All right. Good. Now once we get to here, all right, here we go. Washington on its way to max build. As I was going to say is once we get into the meat of the game, when the war starts, I will move it down to speed 3 so that I can better work with what's going on. And cavalry small arms. See, he's got to go another, that only brings him up to 34. It got to come up to 38. So let's check to make sure. Yep, we're getting everything. So I'm going to move him back up there because, again, that's a prerequisite still for something I'm trying to get. Philadelphia. Excellent. Now, one thing you will remember, when you build them directly on the province and they come up, they will stay in the queue, okay? And they'll stay at the top of the list. So they'll just keep building down as the number of factories it told you to build. Generally, if you build them one at a time and then you re-queue again, they go down to the bottom of the list, okay? But I want them to stay at the top of the list and just keep building. I try to get 350 before the war starts, but generally right around 300 I'll start building aircraft, because at the beginning interceptors are the most important thing for me to build in my play style. And then, like I said, as soon as I can get some ships going, I will at 1940 tech. You can see here descent is showing in the green, so let's make sure we're not wasting any IC, as it were. Now I have a little excess I see here, 2 excess according to my, so I will allow reinforcements to go in. Just that excess that I have. Outstanding. Now this is going to give us a pretty big boost here. You can see right now base is 257, and I've already got, just because of that factory pop, I've got 10 extra. Let's go ahead and allocate that to the reinforcement. Sliders, one thing another minor annoyance with the game is the sliders, even though they're locked, you can right click them and they'll gray out showing they're locked. The dang things do move. You can lock a slider all day long, but it still moves. It is annoying, I will admit that. I hope in HOI 4 that when you lock a slider, it stays locked. Okay, now, let's see. Now you can see that my supplies are going down because it takes supplies to build those factories back up. So that was just a huge drain on the supply chain. We're at 257, now we're up to 259, 261, 264. It'll keep going up until everything is stabilized. Okay, now the reinforcements, now I'm going to let upgrades go through. Just a tiny trickle. Republican Spain won the war. Now that's outstanding. I will admit I do enjoy that, because 9 times out of 10 the nationalists win the Republican Civil, or the Spanish Civil War. So that was nice. I do like that. That usually means, in my experience, that the game is going to be exciting, but we'll see. Submarine hull is going to be 1940 now. Take it out. Now I could, based on my own stated goals of this game, I have 1940 tech submarines, so I could start building them, but it's way too early for me to start building them. Cavalry. Let's see what we got here. I got everything but small arms. 38 is, again, the go-to date. Now that is the one thing I will research ahead, is mechanized. I'll put it in as early as I can. And it's also worth noting that as my units upgrade, they do take additional supply. So that's another drain. Please, slider, stay where I lock you. Cuba, yes. And of course, Ireland wants to buy a production license for the A24. I will allow it. Rare materials. Rare materials. Again, assassination attempt of opposition leader. I won't make my decision based on what the pop-ups say. I will make my decision based on what the leader of a democratic country would do. And I don't want to send in the army because that's draconian. I will do what I can to calm things down. You know, say something on the radio, that sort of thing. I'm not sending in the army, so we'll let the we'll let things fall where they may. Now I'm back in the predicament of not having enough supplies. Let's see if France will sell me some. Negative. All right, Italy. Nationalist China. Now this is, I said early on that there are some times when I turn on the AI when it comes to automated trade. This may be one of the situations where I do that, because it can afford to sit here and check as much as it needs to for anyone that can possibly send supplies, whereas it's just much more efficient at it as it's a computer. However, I'm always very wary of doing that late game, because it will make trades that I don't agree with and sell some of my product that I don't want to be sold. I don't like to see a negative number up here. I might have 99,000 metal, but if it's in the red, I don't like it. And I realize that's irrational, but that's just the way I am. In most games, I'm currently playing Zion, and you can see my thread in the Zion forums here on Steam, but I'm a hoarder. I tend to hoard everything I can get my hands on, because I always think I'm going to need it in the future. I'm going to need that item, this item. I'm going to need 99,000 metal at one point. That's in my mind. That's what I tell myself. Okay, now I'm going to turn on the automated trade and see if AI can do its thing. Good. Now I believe this is a good point. I forgot to set my timer, but I'm guessing. I think this is a good point to put a break in the game. Thank you for watching if you did. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to post them there. I'm not an expert by far, but I'll do my best to answer. If I can't answer it, I'll search the wiki or the Paradox forums perhaps and try to get you an answer posted. Thank you.